Close your eyes and imagine stepping into a medieval village at dawn. The air is crisp, smoke rises from chimneys, and people are beginning their day. But here's something that might surprise you. Not a single person will touch soap today, or tomorrow, or ever in their lifetime. Yet somehow, these people lived full, healthy lives for centuries. Tonight, let's uncover the forgotten secrets of how our ancestors stayed clean in a world without soap. Think about your morning routine for a moment. You probably reached for soap within minutes of waking up. Your hands, your face, your body, all depend on that small bar or bottle of liquid. But what if I told you that this thing you can't imagine living without didn't exist for most of human history? What if the very foundation of how you think about cleanliness is built on a story that's only a few hundred years old? Let me take you on a journey that will change how you see your ancestors forever. Because what you're about to discover isn't just about soap. It's about human creativity, about finding solutions when you have nothing, about communities that work together in ways we've forgotten. It's about people who were far more clever than we give them credit for. You see, we've been told a lie about the past. We've been taught that people in medieval times were dirty, smelly, and unhealthy. But what if that's not true? What if they actually knew secrets about staying clean that we've completely forgotten? What if they had solutions that were not just effective, but in some ways better than what we use today? The truth is going to surprise you, because the story of how people survived without soap isn't just a history lesson. It's a masterclass in human ingenuity that will make you question everything you thought you knew about cleanliness, about progress, and about what it really means to be human. Let's start with something that might shock you. Soap, as we know it, didn't exist for most of human history. The first soap-like substances appeared around 2800 BCE in ancient Babylon, but they were luxury items, rarer than gold. For the common person in medieval Europe, soap was as foreign as a smartphone would be to you if you lived in the 1800s. Can you imagine that? Picture walking into the most expensive store in your city today. Now imagine that a simple bar of soap costs more than your car. That's the reality our ancestors faced. Soap wasn't just expensive, it was impossible for most people to even see, let alone use. But here's where the story gets interesting. The soap we think of today, the kind that's in every home, didn't become common until the 18th and 19th centuries. That means for thousands of years, millions of people lived, worked, raised families, built cathedrals, created art, and yes, stayed clean, without ever touching what we consider essential for basic hygiene. This changes everything, doesn't it? Because if soap was impossible to get, but people weren't walking around sick and dirty, then they must have known something we don't. They must have discovered secrets that we've lost in our modern world of endless products and complicated routines. Think about this for a moment. We spend billions of dollars every year on cleaning products. We have soap for our hands, different soap for our bodies, special soap for our faces, soap for our clothes, soap for our dishes. We have liquid soap, bar soap, antibacterial soap, moisturizing soap. We've created an entire industry around this one thing. But our ancestors? They had none of that. Zero. Nothing. Yet they survived. They thrived. They built civilizations. So the question isn't whether they were clean. The question is how they got clean. And the answer is going to change how you think about everything. You see, medieval people weren't dirty because they wanted to be. They weren't ignorant about cleanliness. They simply had to be more creative, more resourceful, more connected to the natural world around them. They had to become experts in something we've completely forgotten how to understand. They had to learn the true power of water. Picture a medieval morning by the river. As the sun rises, you'd see something remarkable. People understanding water in ways we've forgotten. They knew that different waters cleaned differently, that temperature mattered, that timing was everything. They turned something we take for granted into an art form. You probably turn on a tap and expect clean water to flow out, hot or cold, whenever you want it. But imagine if getting water was work. Imagine if you had to walk to get it, carry it, heat it over a fire. Would you waste it? Would you use it carelessly? Of course not. You'd learn to make every drop count. And that's exactly what our ancestors did. They became water experts because they had to be. They discovered that cold water was perfect for certain types of cleaning, while hot water was essential for others. They learned that river water had different properties than well water, that rainwater was softer and better for washing hair, that mineral-rich spring water could heal certain skin conditions. Think about the communities that formed around water sources. Picture entire villages built near rivers, not just for drinking and cooking, but for cleaning. Imagine the social rituals that developed around these daily trips to the water. Women would gather to wash clothes, sharing stories and supporting each other. Children would play while learning the importance of cleanliness. Men would return from work and join the community cleaning rituals. This wasn't just about getting clean. This was about connection, about community, about understanding your place in the natural world. When you had to work for your water, when you had to share it with others, when you had to respect its power and its limits, you developed a relationship with cleanliness that went far deeper than anything we experience today. The bathhouse culture that survived from Roman times shows us just how sophisticated this understanding was. These weren't just places to get clean, they were centers of community life. People would spend hours in these spaces, using different temperatures of water, different techniques, different natural additives to achieve levels of cleanliness that might surprise you. But here's what's really amazing. They understood that cleaning wasn't just about removing dirt. They knew that different seasons required different approaches. In winter, they focused on warming treatments that would protect their skin from harsh weather. In summer, they used cooling methods that would refresh and protect from heat. They adapted their cleaning routines to work with nature, not against it. And they discovered that water alone, when used skillfully, could do things that would amaze us today. They learned to create steam for deep cleaning, to use temperature changes to open and close pores, to combine water with natural minerals and herbs to create treatments that were both cleansing and healing. But water was just the beginning. Walk into a medieval herb garden, and you're standing in nature's pharmacy. Our ancestors discovered that the earth provided everything they needed, not just for healing, but for staying clean. They turned their backyards into laboratories, their gardens into medicine cabinets, their understanding of plants into a science of cleanliness that we're only beginning to appreciate again. Have you ever heard of soapwort? It's a plant that our ancestors called nature's soap. And for good reason. When you crush its leaves and add water, it creates a natural lather that cleans just as effectively as modern soap. But here's the amazing part. It's actually gentler on your skin than most commercial products today. Imagine discovering that for the first time. Picture a medieval woman experimenting with different plants, crushing leaves, mixing with water, and suddenly seeing bubbles form. The excitement, the wonder, the realization that nature had provided exactly what she needed. This wasn't just cleaning. This was discovery. This was science happening in real time. But soapwort was just one of dozens of plants they used. They discovered that wood ash, when mixed with water, created a powerful alkaline solution that could remove the toughest stains and clean the dirtiest surfaces. They learned that certain herbs, like lavender and rosemary, didn't just smell good, they actually fought bacteria and kept skin healthy. Think about the knowledge this required. They had to understand which plants grew in which seasons, how to harvest them at the right time, how to prepare them for different uses. They had to know which herbs were safe for skin, which ones were too strong, which combinations worked best together. They became botanists, chemists, and doctors all in one. Clay and sand became their scrubbing tools, but not just any clay or sand. They learned to identify which types worked best for different purposes. Fine sand for gentle exfoliation, coarse sand for tough cleaning jobs, different clays for different skin types. They turned the ground beneath their feet into a beauty supply store. And then there were the oils. Olive oil, animal fats, oils extracted from nuts and seeds. They discovered that these could cleanse just as effectively as soap, but in a completely different way. Instead of stripping away natural oils like modern soap does, these natural oils would dissolve dirt and impurities while actually nourishing the skin. Can you imagine the trial and error this took? The generations of knowledge passed down from mother to daughter, father to son. The careful observation of what worked and what didn't. They didn't have laboratories or scientific journals. They had curiosity, patience, and a deep respect for the natural world. But here's what's really remarkable. They created a seasonal cleaning system that worked with the natural cycles of the earth. In spring, they used fresh green herbs and flowers. In summer, they harvested and dried plants for year-round use. In autumn, they gathered seeds and nuts for oils. In winter, they relied on stored herbs and warming treatments. They understood something we've forgotten, that cleanliness isn't just about removing dirt. It's about working with your body's natural processes, respecting the changing seasons, and using what the earth provides. They developed a relationship with cleanliness that was sustainable, effective, and deeply connected to the world around them. Now imagine being so clever that you could stay clean with just what nature provided. Our ancestors developed techniques that were surprisingly sophisticated. Some that modern science has proven were actually more effective than we thought. They became inventors, engineers, and artists of cleanliness, creating methods that would make today's product designers jealous. Let me tell you about the scraping method. Picture this. Instead of using soap to remove dirt and dead skin, they used curved tools made from metal, wood, or even bone to gently scrape away impurities. This wasn't harsh or painful. It was precise and effective. They understood that sometimes the best way to clean something isn't to dissolve it, but to remove it completely. Roman bathhouses had special curved tools called strigils that were designed specifically for this purpose. But medieval people adapted this technique using whatever materials they had available. They carved wooden tools, shaped metal implements, even used smooth stones. They turned the simple act of scraping into a precise art form. But scraping was just one technique. They also mastered the power of friction. They created rough cloths and brushes from natural materials that could remove dirt and stimulate circulation at the same time. They learned that different textures worked for different purposes, that gentle friction could be more effective than harsh scrubbing. Think about the ingenuity this required. They had to understand how skin worked, how dirt adhered to surfaces, how to remove impurities without causing damage. They became experts in pressure, angle, and technique. They knew exactly how much force to use, which direction to move, how long to spend on each area. Steam cleaning was another breakthrough. Long before we had steam cleaners, they figured out how to use hot water and enclosed spaces to create deep cleaning environments. They built small huts or enclosed areas where they could generate steam using hot stones and water. They discovered that steam could open pores, soften skin, and make cleaning more effective. Picture sitting in one of these steam baths. The warm, moist air opening your pores, the heat relaxing your muscles, the steam carrying the scent of herbs and flowers. This wasn't just cleaning. This was therapy. This was medicine. This was a complete wellness experience that addressed both physical and mental health. But perhaps their most clever innovation was the layering system. Instead of trying to keep their skin perfectly clean at all times, they developed a system of multiple layers of clothing that managed hygiene in a completely different way. They understood that the key wasn't to eliminate all bacteria and oils, but to manage them effectively. They wore thin linen undergarments that absorbed sweat and oils, then layered other clothes on top. They changed and washed these inner layers regularly, while the outer clothes stayed clean longer. They created a system that was both practical and effective, using the natural properties of different fabrics to maintain cleanliness. Think about how smart this was. Instead of fighting against their body's natural processes, they worked with them. Instead of trying to eliminate all oils and moisture, they managed them. They understood that the human body is designed to produce certain substances for good reasons, and their job was to work with those natural processes, not against them. Social cleaning was another innovation that shows how creative they were. They understood that some cleaning tasks were easier with help, so they developed systems where family and community members would help each other stay clean. They turned hygiene into a social activity, a bonding experience, a way to strengthen relationships. Picture a medieval family working together to prepare for a special occasion. Everyone helping everyone else, sharing tools and techniques, making sure no one was left out. This wasn't just about getting clean. This was about care, about love, about community responsibility. And then there were the professionals, barber surgeons who didn't just cut hair, but provided complete hygiene services, bath attendants who were skilled in the art of cleaning and healing. These people turned cleanliness into a profession, developing specialized knowledge and techniques that they passed down through generations. These professionals understood the human body in ways that would impress modern doctors. They knew how to clean without causing irritation, how to treat skin conditions naturally, how to combine cleanliness with healing. They were part scientist, part artist, part healer. Here's where our story gets really interesting. Medieval people didn't just survive without soap. They created entire cultures around cleanliness that were beautiful, meaningful, and surprisingly effective. They understood something we've forgotten, that being clean isn't just about removing dirt. It's about connecting with your community, expressing your values, and maintaining your place in society. Religious cleanliness was central to medieval life, but not in the way you might think. They understood that taking care of your body was a spiritual act, a way of showing respect for the divine gift of life. They developed cleaning rituals that were both practical and sacred, turning daily hygiene into a form of prayer and meditation. Picture starting your day with a cleaning ritual that wasn't just about getting ready for work, but about preparing your soul for the day ahead. Imagine ending your day with cleansing practices that weren't just about removing dirt, but about releasing the stress and negativity you'd accumulated. They turned hygiene into a spiritual practice that nourished both body and soul. Social hierarchies played a huge role in how people approached cleanliness. The wealthy had access to imported oils, expensive herbs, and elaborate bathing facilities. But even common people found ways to express their social status through their approach to hygiene. They used cleanliness as a form of communication, a way to show respect for others and for themselves. Think about what this means. In a world without designer clothes or expensive accessories, your level of cleanliness became a way to show who you were. It demonstrated your self-respect, your consideration for others, your understanding of social expectations. It was a form of art, a way of expressing your identity and your values. Courtly traditions developed elaborate systems of cleanliness that were both functional and symbolic. Nobles didn't just get clean, they performed cleanliness as a form of theater. They used scented waters, ornate bathing vessels, and complex rituals that demonstrated their wealth and sophistication. But here's what's fascinating. Even these elaborate court rituals were based on the same natural principles that common people used. They just had access to more exotic ingredients and more elaborate tools. The basic understanding of how to achieve cleanliness remained the same across all social levels. Gender differences in medieval cleanliness show us how sophisticated their understanding was. They recognized that men and women had different needs, different social expectations, and different approaches to hygiene. They developed specialized techniques and products for each gender, understanding that effective cleanliness required customization. Women developed elaborate hair washing rituals using herbs and oils that would keep their hair healthy and beautiful. They created gentle cleansing methods that would maintain their skin's natural properties. They understood the connection between cleanliness and beauty in ways that modern cosmetics companies are still trying to figure out. Men focused on practical cleanliness that would support their work and social roles. They developed quick, efficient methods that could be done anywhere, using whatever materials were available. They understood that their approach to cleanliness needed to be portable, adaptable, and effective under any conditions. Seasonal celebrations brought entire communities together around cleanliness rituals. They understood that certain times of year called for special attention to hygiene, and they created festivals and traditions that made these practices enjoyable and meaningful. Picture a spring cleaning festival where the entire village would work together to prepare for the coming year. Everyone would share techniques, trade materials, and help each other achieve the highest levels of cleanliness. This wasn't just about hygiene. This was about community, about renewal, about hope for the future. But perhaps most importantly, they developed a scent culture that replaced our modern concept of being scentless. They understood that the human body naturally produces scents, and instead of trying to eliminate all of them, they learned to enhance the pleasant ones and mask the unpleasant ones. They used flowers, herbs, and natural oils to create personal scents that were both pleasant and meaningful. They understood that scent was a form of communication, a way to express personality and mood. They created a rich, complex culture around fragrance that made cleanliness an art form. Think about how different this is from our modern approach. We try to eliminate all natural scents and replace them with artificial ones, but they worked with their body's natural chemistry, enhancing what was already there, creating harmony between their natural scent and the fragrances they added. As we reach the end of our journey through medieval cleanliness, let's take a moment to appreciate something remarkable. For thousands of years, humans thrived without the products we consider essential today. They developed wisdom about their bodies, their environment, and their communities that we're only beginning to understand again. What strikes me most about this story is how much wisdom we've lost. In our rush to create better products, more convenient solutions, and faster results, we've forgotten some fundamental truths about cleanliness that our ancestors understood instinctively. They knew that cleanliness wasn't just about removing dirt. It was about maintaining health, expressing respect, and connecting with community. They understood that the best cleaning methods work with your body's natural processes, not against them. They recognized that sustainable cleanliness requires understanding and respecting the natural world. Modern science is starting to rediscover some of these ancient truths. We're learning that our skin has a natural microbiome that needs to be protected, not destroyed. We're discovering that many traditional herbs and natural cleaning methods are actually more effective than synthetic alternatives. We're beginning to understand that our ancestors' gentler approach to cleanliness might have been healthier for both our bodies and our environment. But this isn't just about cleaning products. This story teaches us something profound about human nature. It shows us that people have always been creative, resourceful, and intelligent. It reminds us that progress isn't always about having more stuff. Sometimes it's about understanding what we already have. Our ancestors faced a challenge that seemed impossible: how to stay clean without soap. But instead of giving up, they got creative. They looked around them. They experimented. They learned from each other. They turned limitation into innovation, scarcity into opportunity. Think about what this means for your life today. What challenges are you facing that seem impossible? What limitations are you dealing with that feel overwhelming? What if, instead of seeing these as problems, you saw them as opportunities to get creative, to find new solutions, to discover capabilities you didn't know you had? The medieval approach to cleanliness teaches us that there's always a way forward, even when the obvious solution isn't available. It shows us that working with natural processes is often more effective than fighting against them. It reminds us that community, creativity, and respect for the natural world can solve problems that seem impossible. But perhaps most importantly, it teaches us to question our assumptions about what's necessary and what's possible. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need more products, more convenience, more artificial solutions to natural problems. But our ancestors proved that human ingenuity, natural wisdom, and community cooperation can accomplish remarkable things. They didn't just survive without soap. They thrived. They built civilizations, created art, raised families, and lived full, meaningful lives. They developed approaches to cleanliness that were effective, sustainable, and deeply connected to their values and their environment. This doesn't mean we should throw away our modern conveniences and go back to medieval methods, but it does mean we can learn from their wisdom, appreciate their ingenuity, and perhaps find ways to combine the best of both worlds. Maybe we can be more mindful about the products we use, more creative about finding natural solutions, more connected to our communities and our environment. Maybe we can remember that cleanliness is about more than just removing dirt. It's about respecting ourselves, caring for others, and maintaining our connection to the natural world. As you go to sleep tonight, think about the water that flows from your tap, the soap that sits by your sink, the countless products that make your daily routine possible. But also think about the creativity, the wisdom, and the community spirit of the people who came before us. They faced challenges we can't imagine, but they found solutions that worked for thousands of years. They remind us that human beings are remarkably adaptable, endlessly creative, and capable of finding solutions to any problem. They show us that working together, respecting natural processes, and thinking creatively can overcome any obstacle. Their story is our story. Their creativity is our inheritance. Their wisdom is our guide. And their example reminds us that no matter what challenges we face, there's always a way forward. Always a solution waiting to be discovered. Always hope for a better tomorrow. So rest well tonight, knowing that you come from a long line of problem solvers, innovators, and survivors. You carry within you the same creativity, the same resilience, and the same wisdom that helped your ancestors thrive for thousands of years without soap. And that wisdom, that creativity, that resilience is still there whenever you need it. The next time you face a challenge that seems impossible, remember the medieval villagers who turned plants into soap, water into medicine, and limitation into innovation. Remember that you have within you the same human ingenuity that has solved problems for thousands of years. And remember that sometimes the best solutions come not from having more, but from understanding what you already have. Sweet dreams, and may you wake tomorrow with a new appreciation for both the conveniences of modern life and the timeless wisdom of those who came before us.